Love you.
Love you too. So the big question on my mind right now. What? Oh, yeah.
Where's the clicker?
No, that's a good, and,
Point it that way?
yeah, up, the back, forward,
Right,
back.
back. Right.
Okay, cool. On top of it. So there's a big question that's on my mind, and that is, where is I'm going to put the water bottle? Like, where's it going to go? I think I'm going to drop it right here for now. If I knock it over, we'll deal with it then. Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing this afternoon? How was lunch? Ooh, ooh. I don't think y'all heard me. How is everyone? Yes! Okay, I have one rule for while I'm on the stage, and it's one rule maybe for the whole weekend. We don't half-ass anything in here, okay? We always use our full ass. Both cheeks at all times. That's an internet meme. I can't take credit for that one. But as long as we're showing up, let's show up fully. I'm showing up fully for all of you here today because that's how I choose to live, because that's what makes me fucking jazzed and excited about life. Yes, there's going to be F-bombs. I hope that that's okay. Yeah. So I'm bringing that energy. I hope and I want all of you to meet me where you can, where I am, okay? Because that's how this is going to work. I don't like standing up here. I don't like standing in places and feeling like I'm talking at people. I like feeling like we're having a conversation and a dialogue. That's what excites me. And I can see from like the eye contact, some of you guys are dark in the back, but I can see that people are meeting me where I am, and I'm like, love that. That feels so good and warm and gooey inside, doesn't it? Human connection is my jam. Where's Mark Groves? Yeah, I got that from Mark. Cool. Oh, look at that. So that's me. And I'm going to start off with a quote, because I feel like quotes make people take you seriously. So that's what I'm going to do. And actually, I'm going to be with you guys while I read this quote. It's a long one. Cool. So, when you are in the middle of a story, it isn't a story at all, but only a confusion, a dark roaring, a blindness, a wreckage of shattered glass and splintered wood, like a house in a whirlwind, or else a boat crushed by the icebergs or swept over the rapids and all aboard powerless to stop it. It's only afterwards that it becomes anything like a story at all, when you are telling it to yourself or to someone else. So that quote excites me so much. And this is like the 14th time I've read it this week. And it still gets me off and why I'm starting with it is because it's really easy for me or anybody else, well, it's not easy, but it's easy in a way to stand up here and tell you a story about my life or how I got to where I am or how like point A led me to point B, led me to point C, D, E, and now I'm here. But the reality of it is that when you are going through the story, it blows, you guys. Like when you are like, yes, I see that, Cast, I know you know. Yeah. So like, point A, cool. Point B, all right, it's point C. What the hell is going on? Point D, oh my, what is my life right now? Point E, I think I'm getting sense here. Point F. It's like in the journey, the middle part, in retrospect, we can look at it and we can say, oh yeah, I can see. We can do the Steve Jobs, the dots connect. I think Lewis brought that up this morning. I can see how that led me to where I am, and I can see how that got me here and all this stuff. But when you're in it, you don't see that shit. You are just like, life is terrible. This isn't working. Things are not going well. And I always look like this at that point. Excuse me? Life? Hi. I thought I was doing like a good job here. Why are you shitting on me? I don't understand it. And it's really hard, and I think everyone in this room can identify with this. It's really hard when you're like a self-aware human who is doing the best you can in the world, who's like trying to develop themselves and be the best version of themselves, and life continues to like shit on you a little bit. It's like, what the hell? A lot of what we've been talking about today is like about what? Like thinking positive, believing it, seeing it, knowing you can have it. Sometimes you're doing that stuff, and guess what happens? Gonna get real gross for a second. There's a big pile of poop right here, and life sets up a fan right here, and it hits the wall. Sometimes that's what happens. And who are we in those moments? That's what I want to talk about today. Who are we when we are in the middle of our story? Because guess what? We are all in the middle of a story. I have had an amazing life experience. The past few years specifically have been like top drawer, kicking ass, taking names, good. And guess what? I'm still in the middle of my story. So, masters of the universe, we must ask ourselves, not just who will we be at the end of the journey, the imaginary end of the journey, that's never a real thing because there's always a new finish line, right? That's another like, oh crap moment. Who are we gonna be in the moments where it's not so great, where it's not so hot, when we're scared, when we're confused? I'm gonna share a little bit about my own personal experience, and I want you to be, as I'm talking, applying it to your own life and thinking about it. Who do you become when shit hits the fan? Who are you? I need to stay in the light. Who are you when things don't go the way that you want them to go? Because here's another big piece of what I'm going to be talking about today. Life has a plan for all of us that is better than the plan that we have for ourselves. I'm going to say that again, and I want you to, like, if you get it, let me know. Life has a plan for all of us that is better than the plan that we have for ourselves. Do we get that? Oh, word, love it. And when I say life, I'm talking about life like capital L life, like life force. Some people call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it magic fairy dust. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it anything. You can be like, this chick's nuts. Life, to me, is what is guiding me, that is setting things up, that is stacking these huge dominoes, one on top of the other, one on top of the other, one on top, that I can't see or understand. And I watch them getting knocked down, and I'm trying to make sense of it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. And how do I help myself on that journey? Because the relationship that we have with ourselves will dictate how we show up in the world, what we choose to do, the connections that we make with others. Who are you guys? Like, who am I? What the hell does that even mean? Who am I? What do I want? Who do I want to be? In my work one-on-one, because I do personal coaching, I do group coaching, I'm largely known for my work in the genre of what I come to call female fun empowerment, which is not something I ever thought I would be a part of, but no, I work with men and women, and the basis of my work is always coming back to, who are you? Who do you want to be? Who are you in relation to yourself, to others, to your path, to your journey, all of those things. So that's what I'm really going to be diving in today. So let me tell you a little bit about the middle of my story a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the Margaret Atwood slide in case you guys need a refresher on what we're talking about. So where do I want to start? Point A. All right. So I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, New England. It's charming. It's kind of like Stars Hollow and Gilmore Girls, if anyone's familiar, but like, thank you. But like not that cute, but like kind of similar to that. I grew up in a new age self-help woo-woo family that was also, they were kind of stuffy and Puritan. It's like if the Kennedys like went to Abraham Hicks conferences. Like that's how I would describe it. So that was my upbringing, and I didn't realize until much later what a formative effect that would have on me, but it did, clearly because I'm here in front of all of you. So point A, okay, so like I'm living my life, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I live a little while, and I realize, wow, you know what, I have two loves in the world. I have two loves. Do you know what those loves are? The theater. I was going to be on the stage. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a performer. It eventually evolved into stand-up comedy. I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. And guess what my other love was? It starts with a B and it ends with a Z. Boys. I love me some men. I was so boy crazy for like a decade. It was so, looking at me, it was so sad. But at the time, I was just like, I just want a boyfriend. If I can just be in a play and have a boyfriend, I will have made it. That was like 15-year-old me, right? So I had these two loves. And I pursued those loves with a passion and a vigor, even with braces. So Point B gets to like, okay, so we're in college, we're studying theater, we're having a good time, we're falling in love, we're falling out of love, we're getting like kicked on our ass. It was good, it was bad, it was ugly, it was all of it. So at a certain point in time, I would guess it's like, okay, point C, it's probably like what, like we graduate from college, it's like a point C. Point D, middle of my story, things are going well, but on the inside, like my soul is crying. So like I had some really cool stuff happening in my professional life. So I was living in New York City. I was starting to get small parts on television shows. I was doing stand-up. I was also like bartending to survive. Things were like going well. I was like cool. Like when my parents were calling, I was like, yeah, no, I have a job and I'm getting paid for it. Like things were good. My love life, I was dating this amazing man who was, wait for it, an Ivy League educated gentleman whose passion was global children's literacy, who looked like a cross between James Marsden and David Beckham. Word, I know. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, sure, we'll do this. But I was really, really unhappy. And do we all know what that feels like when you get what you wanted, but you're really, really unhappy? Is there any worse feeling in the world than when everything that you think you wanted isn't what you wanted after all? Can you raise your hand if you felt some version of that? Look at like all of this. We all get it, right? That's the middle of your story. When nothing makes sense, when it's like I'm checking the boxes, why isn't this shit lining up? James Marsden, David Beckham, hello? I'm like hanging out in Vera Wang with like Leighton Meester and Blake Lively on Gossip Girl, hello? And I'm like, this does not feel good. This doesn't feel like me. So what happens when we're here? I'll tell you what happened to me. I mean, there was like a lot of margaritas. There was a lot of therapy. There was a lot of avoidance and confusion and heartache and hurt and I don't know. I would actually love to hear, like, you don't have to speak directly, but if anyone can, you can just shout it out even. Like, when you're in that point, right, because we all know that we've been there, when things don't make sense, when maybe you check the box, but your heart's not in it anymore, what happens? Does anyone want to share anything? It would mean so much to me, and I know the rest of the group. Hi.
Digging your heels in the ground.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So you dig in your heels. That's such a good, I'm so glad that you said that, because it's like, yeah. So instead of like recognizing, we all do this, instead of recognizing like, oh, I got here and I hate it, I should leave, we're like, I got here and I hate it, let me see if I can make myself love it. Let me prove to all the people in my life that I didn't screw it up. That's a big one too, right? And that hurts more, because what are we doing? We're abandoning ourselves. We're betraying ourselves. Who are we being to ourselves in that moment? We're not paying attention to how we feel or honoring who we are. We're arguing with ourselves and telling ourselves that we're wrong. That never works. Hint, spoiler alert, it never, ever works. Think about somewhere in your life right now that is dissatisfying to you, not doing it for you, hurting you, making you upset, and you know. I'm not talking about up here, you know. I'm talking about from the neck down, you know. Like you think about doing it and you're like, do I have to? And then you go to your friends and you're trying to like talk to them about it and they're telling you like, but he looks like James Marsden and David Beckham. And you're like, I know, but it doesn't feel right. So I'm so glad that you said that about taking it, because that's actually in a huge way what I did. So we decided the relationship was falling apart. It was going down in flames. I have this special talent where I can see that happening and I just pour kerosene all over it. So what we decided to do at that moment was we were like, you know what we need? We're living here in New York City. Our relationship is breaking here. We should go to New Orleans together, because surely this is a geographical problem. And if I just go to another state, my problems won't follow me there and we'll somehow be magically in love. Don't we do that too? We think that our issues are like location specific. No, point D will follow you everywhere you go. So we go to New Orleans together, and I'm expecting that like we're gonna get off the plane and like the air is gonna smell sweeter, and I'm gonna look at him and he's gonna look so much better, and I won't care that we don't have all these connections and our sex life is terrible. I won't care about any of that. I'll just be like so happy that we're there and we're together and it's amazing. It wasn't. It was not good. And I remember thinking at that moment in time, oh crap, you're gonna have to deal with this. Which is actually a really wonderful moment, isn't it? Because, I'm going to go back to point D, because when we're in the middle and we're fighting with ourselves and we're digging our heels in and we're avoiding and we're denying and we're drinking and we're crying and our therapist knows what we should do, but they won't tell us. And we're like, that's what I'm paying you for. Most of us are in point D and it's like hot coals. Like we're like, I can't deal with it. It's not working. What the hell am I going to do? I'm so miserable. I'm so upset. If we can do this, okay? I'm going to get really like close and quiet down here. That's my mic pack. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to look at what's going on here and I'm going to look at it free from judgment a little bit. I'm going to detach the story that I have in my mind for how things are supposed to go down. And I'm going to tune in, like I said, from the neck down, and I'm going to get curious, and I'm going to get introspective, and I'm going to pay attention to how I feel, and I'm going to let that guide me out of this. And I'm going to reach for relief. That's one of the biggest things that any of us can do in any moment. This is really comfortable, but I'm going to get back up. We can reach for relief. And sometimes relief doesn't look how we want it to look like. Sometimes it looks like breaking up with the Ivy League hottie. Sometimes it looks like leaving the 6 or 7 figure job. Sometimes it looks like breaking off the engagement or coming out of the closet. Relief will not lead you astray. When you can look inside yourself and say, okay, what do I need? Who do I need to be with myself right now? I need to be really gentle and kind and caring and patient right now. Because don't we do that too? We get to that point where it's like not working and we blame ourselves. Well, we blame ourselves or we blame other people. We just like to blame. It's like a real human thing that we all do. But when we can get quiet and still and listen, that internal guidance is always motherfucking there. How cliche does that sound? And yet how true is it? It's cliche for a reason. So on the plane back to New Orleans, back from New Orleans, going to New York, I remember I was journaling. And little side note, journaling on an airplane is a great idea because like something with like the altitude and your brain and the molecules, it does something weird. I read it in a blog once, so now I do it. And like cool stuff happens, like you have to leave your boyfriend. So I'm journaling, and he's like taking a nap next to me, and I remember having this moment of calm, quiet clarity of like, I don't think this is working anymore. I don't think I want to be an actor anymore. I don't think I want to live in New York. It was like one after the other after the other. But I'll tell you what, when we're digging our heels in, when we're stressing ourselves out, when we're fighting with ourselves, when we're complaining, when we're pissed off with our therapist, when we're like crying alone in the darkness in our bed, being like, why is this happening to me? That clarity is not available. Those messages cannot be transmitted. So when we find ourselves in moments of struggle and pain and frustration, that is a beautiful wake-up call, which has been such a theme for this weekend, which I love, that like pain is not here to mess with you. Pain is here to wake you up and to help like move you in a better feeling direction. If you're listening, if you're open, if you're available, if you're curious, if you're not like punching yourself and telling yourself it shouldn't be that way, it's just the middle of your story. There's nothing wrong with it. The judgment that you have about it is what's fucking with you. Remove some of the judgment. Look at it a little bit objectively. Look at it and ask yourself, okay, what do I know to be true? This isn't working. New York, not where it's at. performing, casting calls, going into a room with 12 other brunettes who look just like me, but like maybe skinnier. Not for me anymore. I will never forget that moment because it was the moment that I realized, oh, I can always come home to myself. I do know what's best for me. Life is showing me. Life had to put me in those circumstances for me to wake up. For me to have that Dorothy at the end of the Wizard of Oz moment, oh, I had the power all along. And from there, real cool shit happens. After a lot of other terrible things and conversations and awkward bad encounters. You guys with me on this? What isn't clear? What doesn't make, this is one of my favorite questions, who's not on board? Or who, what is, we get this, right? So what keeps us from doing it? That's actually a question I would love to hear if anyone else has, what keeps us from, getting quiet? Fear. Oh, good one! What are we afraid of? The unknown, the answer, rejection. Oh, God, this is a smart group of human beings. The fear, did someone say failure? Yeah, that's a huge one. Fear is a motherfucker, isn't she? She will come in, you're on your road trip going through life, and she will come in and sit on your lap while you're in the driver's seat, and she's like, no, I'm gonna take over, and you're like, I can't see over you, and she's like, don't worry about it, I'm shifting gears. Fear will absolutely 110% of the time show up when you're about to embark on some really cool, awesome awakening, and she will tell you all of the ways in which you can't do it because blah, 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 fear talk, fear talk, fear talk. But we know when fear shows up, right? Are we good at labeling fear? Is that something that we're practiced in? Is that something that we could get better in? I think it's something we could all probably get better in. So this is a question that I want you to write down and think about. Who do I become when fear shows up? When fear arises, do I put all of my eggs in the fear basket? Or do I recognize, fear, yes, I see you, you are here, you scare me because that's your job, but you know what? Maybe I'm going to recognize you, honor you, and maybe I'm going to put you in the passenger seat because there's somebody else who is more equipped to drive the car that is going to my destination, that is taking me through my story. And it's me. And it's you. Fear is like whacked out fairy dust that gets sprinkled on our lives sometimes. Write that down too. Fear is like the Kool-Aid that we're drinking when we're in our small little puny human brains and we're like, oh yes, no, I have to be in charge and I have to make good choices and I have to make the right decision, so I better not screw it up because then my dad really won't love me and then I won't be in the will. I don't know. Fear is it's a non-negotiable, it's gonna be there, but how we handle it will say a lot. The good news, the good and the bad news, is that when you get a wake-up call like I did on that airplane, it doesn't matter how afraid you are because you know you have no choice. And it's oh God, I really have to go through with this time. So, God, I have more things, but I'm going to not wrap it up because it's a terrible phrase. I'm going to land this plane. Oh my gosh, I didn't even, because we were in the plane before and now. So that's just one part of the middle of my story, right? I could tell you 18 and a half more stories that were a lot like that. But something that I think is so valuable, this is something I do with my clients, this is something that I try and do in my life so regularly, is to look at your life path, to look at times where you were so sure that you were in the middle and it was just a GD mess, it was horrible, to look at what went right, that you weren't in charge of, that you weren't in control of. Because like I was saying, when we're in our little like pee-wee human brain mind, when we're like in our small little, we're in like point D and it's like a mess, we don't always know what's best for us, but life does. And life will orchestrate events and provide inspiration and line you up with the right people. You don't know it at the time. We can't know it at the time. But think about it. Think about the best friendships, the best opportunities, the best jobs, the best apartments, the best nights out. Did you have a lot to do with that stuff? Honestly. This guy's like, no, I don't. No. Like if you love your family, if you were born into a great family like I was, did I have a lot to do with that? No. Not everyone was born into a great family, but we've all had joys. Connor helped us get in touch with that, and I was like, I have so many feelings. But we've all felt joy. We don't need to be in charge all the time. We can trust that things are moving accordingly. My life now, if I had set out to do what I'm doing now, which is my life's work, like my calling, all of those like buzzwords that are on all the clickbait articles that we're all getting like pushed on the internet constantly. People ask me like, oh, well, how did you get to be a coach? And I'm like, I don't really know. It kind of just happened because that's the truth. I didn't have a lot to do with it. Like I showed up, I did some stuff, and I tuned in, I paid attention, I listened to the guidance when I could hear it. Otherwise, I don't really know. We don't have to be in charge, which is like an ironic thing, and I don't want you to think I'm like dumping on the masters of the universe, because I'm not. But like you don't have to be the master of your universe to lead a fulfilling life. Maybe I don't have to be in charge. Maybe I can trust my story, maybe lean into it a little bit. Life gets a lot sweeter. It feels a lot easier, and when things feel easy, that's a sign that we're moving in a good feeling direction. You don't have to know where you're going. If you're in the middle of your story, which we all are in some form or another, you don't have to know what the destination is. Understand that it will make sense. It will resolve itself. It will become clear, because that's how stories work. And just when you get to an ending, guess what happens? New beginning. Yay, kind of. So basically, if I was going to leave you with anything, if I was going to land this plane on anything, let's all chill out a little bit and be cool, honey bunny, be cool. What is that? Is that Pulp Fiction? Thank you. That's what I thought. I was like, where did that come from? Relax. It's all good. You're in really good hands. And everyone, and like, why do we love hearing stuff like that? Because it's true. Like when Oprah says, like on TV, there are no mistakes. There are no missteps. There are no accidents. Why do we love hearing that? Because it's true. Because it feels really good, and the truth feels really good. Lying to ourselves and telling ourselves, I need to know where I'm going, and I need to know what I'm doing, and I can't fuck it up. That feels horrible because it's lies. So stop lying to yourself when you're in a moment of struggle, when you're in the middle of the story, when you're at point D, when you're like, I can't take it no more. Be easy with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Listen in, get quiet, get close, and relax. I think I'm done. Thank you so much. Thank you.